It's July 9th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with President Yoon's U.S. trip. The South Korean leader has touched down in Hawaii to make a stop at the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command before he heads to Washington, D.C. to attend the NATO Summit. Yoon will be highlighting solidarity for regional and global security throughout his U.S. trip. And just a day before the NATO summit kicks off, Russia launched a wave of missile strikes on cities across Ukraine, including a children's hospital in Kyiv. At least 36 people were killed. The S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq closed at all-time highs again on Monday on the back of rising tech stocks. In fact, Apple took back its position from Microsoft as the firm with the top market capitalization. President Yoon lands in Hawaii Monday local time on his way to the annual NATO meeting. The leader will likely project a strong message of solidarity for regional and global security. Our Oh Soo-young files this report as she travels with the president.
President Yoon will signal South Korea's commitment to enhancing regional and global security as North Korea and Russia's military collaboration threatens peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. As President Yoon travels to Washington, D.C. for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's annual summit, he's stopping by Honolulu, Hawaii. The island state is home to the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, which covers about half of the Earth's surface, including the Korean Peninsula, where some 28,500 US troops are stationed. According to Yoo Ji-un, research fellow at the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses, the president's visit to the command headquarters on Tuesday will not only prove the strength of the 70-year-old South Korea-US alliance, but Seoul's growing role as a contributor to global security.
It underscored South Korea's dedication to countering threats from North Korea and China while aligning with broader international defense strategies. By engaging with both Indo-Pacific Command and NATO, President Yoon highlights the interconnected nature of Indo-Pacific and transatlantic security, promoting a comprehensive defense strategy. This conveys a message of solidarity and cooperation with the key military alliances, reinforcing South Korea's positions as a pivotal security partner committed to maintaining stability and peace on a global scale.
Controlling the US's key strategic assets, such as aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines and bombers, the Indo-Pacific Command plays a crucial role in enabling military cooperation between Seoul, Washington and Tokyo to deter North Korea's nuclear and missile threat to regional security. Three-way activities have increased since plans to institutionalize trilateral security cooperation were agreed upon at Camp David last year.
3 countries have conducted more frequent and complex military drills, demonstrating a unified stance against a regional threat like North Korea's missile test. There has been a notable increase in real-time information sharing, bolstering their collective situational awareness and response capabilities. Additionally, collaborative efforts in missile defense have intensified, focusing on interoperability and combined defense strategies.
Given the mounting threat posed by North Korea and its recent treaty with Russia on military cooperation, as well as suspected weapons delivery, Yoo says the 3 Indo-Pacific partners have space to collaborate further on the maritime front.
The navies of South Korea, the US, and Japan could enhance joint maritime patrols and surveillance to monitor and deter illicit activities. Strengthening interoperability through regular advanced naval exercises would improve coordinated responses to any threat. Establishing a shared intelligence network would ensure real-time information exchange, which is crucial for tracking adversarial movement.
President Yoon's office says the leader's visit to Honolulu and Washington, D.C. is aimed at strengthening South Korea's security through global cooperation. Based on this solidarity, Seoul will expand the scope of security cooperation to economic and technological partnerships with like-minded countries. 오수영, Arirang News, Honolulu.
And President Yoon said Russia will have to choose which side to be with, whether the South or North, ahead of the NATO summit. Now, Russia says it disagrees with Yoon's approach. Our An Sang-jin explains in detail.
Russia has responded to South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's latest statement. According to Russian state-run media TASS and RIA Novosti, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov stated that he opposes the South Korean president's remarks on having to decide which side of the peninsula is more crucial. Instead, he said that Russia aims to harbor a good relationship with both Koreas. He also said it's difficult to cultivate close ties when Seoul has joined sanctions against Russia. The Kremlin's response comes after President Yoon Suk-yeol told Reuters on Monday that whether Seoul provides lethal weapons to Ukraine depends entirely on Russia, and Moscow should be careful about picking sides. Through the written interview ahead of the NATO summit, President Yoon stated that North Korea is a menace to the international society and that military cooperation between Russia and North Korea poses a distinct threat to the peace and security on the Korean peninsula and in Europe. His remarks also stated that Seoul's decision will factor in how the military pact between Moscow and Pyongyang plays out. Ties between Moscow and Seoul have been aggravated by Russian President Vladimir Putin visiting North Korea and signing a strategic partnership treaty on mutual defense. An Sang-jin, Arirang News.
And Russia conducted airstrike across Ukraine on Monday, hitting a children's hospital and killing dozens in broad daylight. Now, the attacks come as U.S. President Joe Biden prepares to welcome NATO leaders to Washington. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Russia launched large-scale airstrikes across Ukraine on Monday, days before U.S. President Joe Biden welcomes NATO leaders to Washington. Citing Ukrainian officials, the Associated Press reported that at least 31 people were killed and 154 others injured in the attacks. Among the facilities that were hit was a children's hospital in Kyiv, which left civilians buried under the rubble of the partially collapsed building. While the exact extent of the casualties has not yet been confirmed, Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said search and rescue operations are underway and that 7 of the 16 injured were children. Another hospital was also struck in the Ukrainian capital, leaving at least 4 dead, as Ukrainian authorities say at least 20 people were killed in the capital alone. The Ukrainian Air Force says that cruise missiles and Kinzhal hypersonic missiles were used in the deadly airstrikes, adding that 30 of the 38 missiles were shot down. Monday's attack targeting Kyiv was the first since the end of March this year. Klitschko condemned the Russian attack, calling it one of the worst attacks on the capital since the Russian invasion. According to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky during a joint press conference with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in Warsaw, Russia, as well as Russian President Vladimir Putin, who ordered the airstrikes, must be held accountable for what he called an act of terror. He added that Moscow responds to everything by attacking homes and hospitals. The call for an emergency meeting comes as Russia took the rotating presidency at the UNSC beginning July 1st. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
This year's NATO summit is extra noteworthy that it's taking place in Washington, D.C., where the North Atlantic Treaty was forged 75 years ago. Let's discuss more about the 75th edition with Professor Kim Youngwoo this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. So please do tell us what makes this year's NATO summit particularly noteworthy or any special?
Yeah, like you said, the summit will be held in Washington, D.C., which marks the 75th anniversary of NATO's founding. So this significant milestone underscores the importance of the alliance and its enduring role in global security. So this summit underscores NATO's increasing focus on global security challenges beyond its traditional Euro-Atlantic area. By involving leaders from non-member countries, NATO aims to address interconnected threats such as cybersecurity, terrorism, and the rise of authoritarianism. So South Korea and NATO have been strengthening its cooperative ties. So President Yoon's repeated invitations highlight the alliance recognition of South Korea as a key partner in addressing global security threats.
Right. And when speaking of tackling global security challenges, NATO and its four Indo-Pacific partners, including South Korea, are expected to issue yet another strong warning to North Korea and Russia for their risky military collaboration. The question is, how strong will that message be this time?
Yeah, NATO and its four Indo-Pacific partners, including Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea, are expected to issue a robust warning to North Korea and Russia regarding their risky military cooperation. Their statement will likely to strongly condemn any military collaboration between North Korea and Russia, emphasizing the destabilizing effects on global and regional security. It will highlight the violation of international norms and potential threats such collaborations pose to peace and stability. So the message will be strong both in its content and its implications, aiming to deter any further military collaborations by highlighting the severe repercussions and united opposition of NATO and its partners. It will also serve as a signal of the growing strategic alignment between Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific security concerns.
And of course, the Ukraine crisis will no doubt be on the agenda, specifically seeking ways to, back the troubled country. What kind of aid deal should we expect to come out? Specifically, will South Korea decide to provide lethal aid to Ukraine or not just yet? What do you think?
The NATO summit will undoubtedly focus on ways to support Ukraine. I think diverse options may be considered, including military aid, financial aid, humanitarian aid, and sanctions and economic measures. I think South Korea has so far refrained from providing lethal aid to Ukraine. South Korea instead has focused on non-lethal aid and humanitarian assistance. Considering domestic public opinion and its strategic relations, South Korea is likely to continue its support for Ukraine through enhanced non-lethal aid and humanitarian assistance. However, if there is significant changes in global strategic landscape and domestic public opinion, South Korea would consider providing lethal aid to Ukraine too in the future.
Right, it will be a difficult decision for Seoul to make. And it's widely believed that NATO members will direct a statement toward China, especially for aiding Russia in the Ukraine war. Now, should we expect the same level of criticism on Beijing this time?
Yes, I think it is very likely that NATO members will continue to criticize China significantly, particularly for its perceived support of Russia in the Ukraine war. Mm-hmm. The intensity of this criticism can be expected to be on the similar level or even greater than that of the previous year. China's threatening behavior in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond is a growing concern for NATO. This includes issues like the militarization of the South China Sea, tensions over Taiwan and its Belt and Road Initiative, which NATO perceives as a means of extending China's influence globally. Also, this year's summit is committed to defending democratic values and human rights. So the emphasis on China will reflect NATO's comprehensive approach to addressing global security challenges beyond its traditional Euro-Atlantic focus.
Definitely, it'll be inevitable almost for the NATO members and also the IP4 members to keep China in check. And Professor, this week's NATO summit will be U.S. President Joe Biden's first international event following his debate against Donald Trump last week. Now, apparently, NATO member states are worried that Trump may return to the White House. Is that so?
Yes, it is reported that NATO members are very concerned about the possibility of Donald Trump returning to the White House. During his presidency, Donald Trump frequently criticized the NATO, questioning the values of the alliance. He also pressured member countries to increase its defense spending, which created tensions within the alliance. By contrast, President Biden is likely to use the NATO summit as an opportunity to reassure allies of the U.S. unwavering commitment to NATO and collective security. So this summit may be a good opportunity for Biden to overcome his defeat in the debate last week.
All right, let's see how that goes. Professor Kim Dong-soo, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Over on Wall Street, the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq hit new record highs again on Monday. The S&P 500 rose 5.66 points, up 0.1% from the previous trading day, to close at 5,572.85. The Nasdaq jumped 50.98 points, up 0.28% from the previous trading session, to close at 18,403.74. Now, both indexes reached fresh record highs on the back of rising tech stocks. Apple, which had seen gains for 5 straight trading sessions on Monday, rose 0.65% to close at $227.82 per share, regaining its status from Microsoft as the company with the top market capitalization. The Korean government has decided that it will withdraw administrative penalties against trainee doctors who left their workplaces over the government's medical quota expansion. Now, it's also relaxing its return policy. Yoon-hee tells us more.
It's been 5 months since trainee doctors left their posts, and on Monday, the government announced it will not take any administrative actions on all trainee doctors. This includes the suspension of medical licenses, regardless of whether they choose to return to work. The Ministry of Health and Welfare made the announcement following a meeting at the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure headquarters.
After reviewing feedback from training sites and assessing the current medical field situation, the decision has been made, effective immediately, not to impose administrative penalties on trainee doctors, regardless of their return status.
With the recruitment period set to start on September 1st, hospitals need to know how many trainee doctors will return to their posts so that they can plan how many new residents to recruit. The government is looking to ease the return policy for those who have resigned so they can apply for the second half of the year. The current regulations prohibit residents who resign during their training period to return to the same position within a year.
Training hospitals should finalize resignations and confirm vacancies by July 15th for the recruitment starting on July 22nd.
Last month, the government withdrew various penalties issued to trainee doctors to provide them with some flexibility to return to their duties. However, as of Thursday last week, only 8% of the total 13,000 trainees were at work, which is only 91 more than before the government postponed the medical license suspension. In addition, on Monday, the government promised to speed up improvements in the training environment for trainee doctors, including gradually reducing the maximum working hour limit from 36 hours to 30 hours. However, the dispute over increasing the medical school quota for 2025 remains unresolved, despite the government finalizing the decision over a month ago, as trainee doctors continue to oppose it. Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Youngwoo, and this is The World Now. Hurricane Beryl made landfall in southeast Texas on Monday morning, killing at least 2 people, closing ports and airports, and leaving more than 2 million people without power. Having been the season's earliest Category 5 hurricane on record when it hit the Caribbean days earlier, leaving at least 10 dead, Hurricane Beryl made landfall in Texas as a Category 1 hurricane with some 130 km/h winds. It was downgraded to a tropical storm as it moved inland across Houston. Over 1,000 flights at the George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston have been cancelled, while officials warned of destructive winds and up to 40 centimeters of rain accompanied by life-threatening storm surges. By Monday afternoon, according to poweroutage.us, over 2.7 million customers in Texas were left without power. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said that Beryl is expected to move over the east of the state before moving into the lower Mississippi Valley and the Ohio Valley on Tuesday and Wednesday. The director of the Hurricane Center warned residents in Beryl's path to seek shelter, as hazardous conditions will persist even after the center of Beryl moves through. Japan and the Philippines signed a defense pact in Manila on Monday that will allow the two countries to deploy military in each other's territory. The Reciprocal Access Agreement is the first of its kind involving Japan in Asia and was signed by the Philippines Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro and Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa, who praised it as a landmark achievement. A joint statement highlighted the need for the international community to speak out on the importance of maintaining and strengthening the free and open international order based on the rule of law in the South China Sea. Amid increased tensions in the region, China's foreign ministry responded by saying the Asia-Pacific region does not need military blocs that instigate bloc confrontations or the new Cold War, while reminding Japan of its atrocities during the Second World War. Aircraft maker Boeing has agreed to plead guilty to a criminal fraud conspiracy charge relating to two fatal crashes of its 737 MAX jets, according to a court filing by the U.S. government on Sunday. A Justice Department official said that the plea still requires a federal judge's approval and would give the company a criminal record. Boeing will also be fined $243.6 million. This comes after the Justice Department in May found Boeing to be violating the terms of its probation over charges stemming from crashes in 2018 and 2019, which killed 346 people. The crashes prompted a probe into the company's manufacturing standards, and Boeing was charged in 2021 of conspiracy to defraud regulators, allegedly deceiving the Federal Aviation Administration over its MCAS flight control system, for which it was given the 3-year probation. June 2024 was officially the hottest on record, and this year may also be the hottest ever. That's according to the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service, which recorded an average global temperature of 16.66 degrees Celsius in June this year. This figure is 0.67 degrees higher than the average temperature for June in the previous 30 years and 0.14 degrees higher than the same month last year. A senior scientist at Copernicus said greenhouse gases emitted from fossil fuels were behind rising temperatures. Climatologists also say hotter temperatures will increase the intensity and frequency of extreme weather across the world. This year, Saudi Arabia and the US were hit by scorching heat, while China, Brazil and Russia saw constant rain. Greece and Canada were also swept by forest fires.
Good morning. Jeolla-do and Gyeongsang-do provinces are seeing 20 millimeters an hour of downpours this morning, and rain could pick up to 50 millimeters an hour in the morning hours. So heavy rain alerts are in place for those areas, and concern is on the rise as Andong and Sangju in Gyeongsang-do province saw the most single-day rainfall yesterday, and more rain will lash down to those regions. Meanwhile, rain clouds will expand to more parts of the country as the day goes on. So many parts will see 30 to 80 millimeters of rainfall through tomorrow, and rain is forecast to come down hard overnight, so please stay safe. Now, temperature-wise, heat advisories in certain parts of the country have been lifted, except on Jeju Island, with an expected high of 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon. But the rest of the country will see highs in the 20s this afternoon. Now, central regions will get a break from monsoon rain in the latter half of the week. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.